Hi, I'm Valerie Milano, the senior editor of the Hollywood Times, and I want to thank Liam for being our guest tonight with his film. And if you could introduce yourself, please, that'd be great.
Hi, my name is Liam Lopinto. I am the director of The Old Young Crow, and I'm very happy to be here with Valerie today.
Thank you, Liam. Thank you for your patience with me. It's been a lot of Zooms. I know there's a lot of film festivals going on, and I know you're doing your circuit, and I hear this is your first film festival circuit, so you got to be pretty tired, but thank you for your patience with the Hollywood Times and me. Um, it's an amazing story of friendship and connections, a wonderful marriage of real life and animation to tell this fanciful tale with a very souled morale. The story is very creative, that of a young Iranian boy and his friendship with nature, um, in the form of the crows and an encounter with a sad Japanese woman at her son's grave. Let's start with the story. Was there a particular inspiration for this story?
Yeah, there's kind of a couple catalysts. I was living in Japan at the time. It was in Tokyo, and I was sketching at a graveyard, and just a big crow ended up just landing across from me on the grave opposite, and that was kind of the first inception of the idea. Um, the great Iranian filmmaker Abbas Kiarostami had passed away a little while after that. There was a lot of retrospectives for Iranian cinema then. I ended up linking up with his assistant and translator, Shorey, and she helped kind of guide me on that way of making this film. And the film was just essentially a film about me reclaiming my own heritage and culture, by way of Japan. And so that ended up being the catalyst for the story.
Well, you have a wonderful drawing style and you combined the live action with the animations quite well. It's amazing. In fact, as it complements the story so very well. How does that process work for you? And did you set out, excuse me, set out with specific ideas for shooting the live action? And did the animation after, or did the animations come first? I mean, in other words, a chicken and an egg dilemma.
Yeah, I mean, the egg definitely got cracked over the chicken's head, you know. Like, I don't know how to describe this better than uh I had shot this film in 2016. The little boy in the film is now 15 years old. He's entering high school. It has been a long time since I first shot this film. We shot it for $1,500, and I was going through like an incredibly difficult period at the time, and I was not able to finish it. And so I had this footage that had really corrupted sound, and the lighting was not continuous. We didn't have like a really the footage was just not where I wanted it to be. And about pretty much like every year leading up to last year, I'd pick it up and I'd be like, I'm gonna finish it. I know how to do this. I'm gonna finish it. Never was able to do it. I went through another period of really big personal health crisis. And as like a means of self-therapy, I kind of picked up the footage again. I looked at it. I still had the sketchbook from when we shot it all those years ago.
Mm.
And just as like catharsis, I reframed the entire movie around me looking back at that experience. My grandfather came back from Iran. I started listening to the Gugush song that ends up being the soundtrack to the film. That all informed the timing. So from there, I spent 3 months on the sketchbook. When I was doing the sketchbook, I was actively taking notes and making an animatic with the footage I already had so I could time everything. It was just pretty, obviously it was like I needed to plan that like some stuff was just going to be like, this is the kid drawing in a sketchbook and it's fun. And then other stuff was like, I need to make sure this cut fits with, this shot here. And it was a lot of reverse engineering essentially.
Mm. Mm. Well, the casting was so perfect, including the choice of the narrator. How did you find these wonderful actors and the perfect narrator?
that perfect narrator is my grandfather.
Oh,
He had
wow.
come back from Iran, and my mom was pretty much like, he's not an actor. He's not going to do a good job. Find somebody who's an actor. And I was like, have you heard his vocal quality? I had worked with him before on my thesis film. My grandfather is a doctor who worked in Khorasan and Balochistan near Afghanistan and Pakistan as an army doctor, surgeon, blah, 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 nutritionist. He had a crazy life. I made a little short film about it. So I had worked with him before. I had collected stuff about his life. So I knew what his voice sounded like. So when I was writing this narration, I'd always had him in mind. As for the little boy, we found him on like a text message chain. There's only like
Really?
5,000 Iranians in Japan or something like that total. So Shorey, her estranged husband, is connected to some kind of like text chain that all these Iranians are connected to. We got we found Hamid, whose son now is the Merdad in the film, and he simply just sent over a photo, and it was just him, his little kid, just standing with his back against the wall. And I was like, perfect, he's great, cast him. The old lady is Shore's best friend, Yamashita-san, and we used her house for the film. And the priest is one of Yamashita-san's good friends who she met at theater school. So none of these people are like established name actors. Everybody just kind of knew each other from my grandfather to this little connect chain from Shore.
Love it. Oh my God, that's so interesting. I know that that this was the 6 year journey to make the film, as you said. And was there ever a time when you felt like tossing it aside for more lucrative pursuits? And how did your family help you continue to want to do it and continue to help this amazing film?
Well, I easily would not have been able to do it without them. I mean, that's the start. And even when I was going through that really tough time, years ago, it was my mom and my dad and everybody who's kind of like, keeping me going because I was in Japan. They weren't around when I was going through all that stuff. And, just, bless them. They were, I was able to get home and I was able to uh, heal with them. And it was the same thing, years later. And maybe I'll tell that story another time in the future. But, um, but really, my mom and we sat down with my grandfather after I had convinced her that he was going to do a good job with this thing.
Yeah.
Sat down and this is the fun part about making stuff with your family, is it's like the constant scrutiny that's involved. Like my mom would direct my grandfather to and be like, no, 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 not this way,
I
this
love it.
way, and then like my uncle would be like overlooking what I'm drawing in the sketchbook and he's like, what is this? Are you trying to write in Farsi? And this is like everything. We were filming that entire top shot of him like opening and closing. My grandfather is 95 years old. So it was really hard for him to like, he's in great shape for a 95-year-old. I mean, the guy, you should hear everything he has to say about diets and vegetarianism. But like we had to do the he didn't have enough breath for the blowing out the candle, so we all had to go,
Oh,
just
wow.
and it was a family thing. My auntie was there, my uncles were there, everybody was like holding onto the lights and everything like that. We were all gathered around the desk that I set up in my sister's room. And yeah, it was pretty. This whole that whole movie basically took around in my sister's room. I had set up a Gorilla little editing pad there, and we were just shooting and blindly seeing what I can get. I was editing while we were shooting, essentially, and then my grandfather would get up from watching his Turkish dramas, and he would like mosey on over to my sister's room, and we just shoot more. And
I
he would
love
put on
it.
a sweater and he would be like, are we good? Good, and then he would like take it off and go back and he'd, then watch Mexican soccer.
That could be just a film on its own, all those outtakes,
It
all
reminds
this
me of like Moonstruck. It's got like all this little,
perfect. I love it. Oh God. Okay, for the final line of the film was the dead speak many languages. You just have to listen. Where did that come from?
That's a great question. I have no idea. I mean, I
You're
think I was
kidding.
I was thinking I had just come up. I It was a kind of one of those string of consciousness things. I remember being so happy when I came up with that whole narration from beginning to end. I like went home to my sister and I was like, look at this. And she's like, yeah, it's good. And I was like, got it, any seal of approval from my sister. It means that something had hit. But it's like an okay line in English, but when you say it in Farsi with my grandfather's voice, there's something very powerful about it. And like the message is essentially like, what do if people all go to whatever, afterlife you can think of, what language are they speaking? Like it's like, is everybody speaking different languages, or does everybody speak the same language, or does everybody just understand each other when they speak their own language? And so that's what I was thinking is like, if he writes a note in his language, because it's his close to his heart, they'll understand it in their language. And it's the idea that there's even in death, like no matter who you are, or whatever, which culture, you can find that kind of spiritual commonality, that kind of warmth and comfort in another place's culture, even if you're grieving.
Oh, this was such a great interview. Thank you again, Liam. Is there
For
anything
sure,
else?
man.
I loved it. Is there anything else you want to say about the film, or what are you thinking about doing next in your
Yeah, well,
endeavors?
the best part about this movie has been showing it to my community, to showing it to Iranian diaspora, because I had my friend Mitra, who's also got a film in the circuit, Starling. It's a great animated short that won a Tribeca, and she showed it to her mom, the Crow movie, and her mom just started drawing little paintings of like crows afterwards. Like it affected her
Hmm.
in a very specific way that mamas and babas, that they feel when they hear the Gugush song and stuff. And when I see, the Japanese audiences respond to it and they look for what does the crow mean in Iran? And they're so curious as to the commonality between the two countries. Like, as well as like the animation community being like, we claim this movie. This might be a live action movie. It might be in the live action race, but that's ours. That's our movie. I love it when people claim like this movie, because that's what the movie's all about. It's about reclaiming your culture in another culture.
Beautiful. Very well said. So how can we find you or the film or anything else you might be thinking about working on?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I have my website. It's my name. It's liamlapinto.com, and my Instagram is Pinto Buns. But really, it's just pinto beans, but instead of beans, it's
Oh,
buns. It's my
gotcha.
name.
Okay.
But the film is going to be playing at AFI Fest at the end of October, and that's going to be a lot of fun because I know a lot of the filmmakers at that lineup, and they've made some amazing films. So I'm super honored to be in their company. And we've got a couple more Oscar qualifying stuff coming up. Some stuff I can't say right now just because of the embargo. But I
Gotcha.
am proud to say that we just won the best short film Novus Visions at the great Oscar qualifying CTES. So it's another incredible thing, and it's really cool to win awards for both categories because it just goes to show, man, I don't know what to do with this. I don't know. I have specifically put it in the live action stuff like every time I have applied, but some people just will put it in their own category, and I guess that's kind of cool too. It's cool to make something like that.
Good for you. Yeah, you're young. You got a long way to go. So keep up the great work. And our website's the Hollywood Times today, and our YouTube is the Hollywood Times official. So we'll be promoting your beautiful film, and appreciate your time and your patience waiting on me tonight.
Oh, thank you, Valerie. It was an absolute
Thank
pleasure. You're a sweetheart too.
you.
So thank you.
Appreciate you. Maybe we'll meet in person because we're going to be at AFI. So
Oh,
might
absolutely.
just work.
Yeah, absolutely. I would love to see you in person. That
Great.
would be very nice.
Ditto. Thanks so much. And keep up the great creativity and say hi to that 95-year-old. Yay. Good genes.
It is.
All right. Have a great rest of your night. Bye.